Hello, and welcome to the Shiv Nadar Foundation Conversations. This is the 21st edition of the conversations that we have started. My name is Sundar Mahalingam. I am the Chief Strategy Officer of the Shiv Nadar Foundation and its corporation. So we started this series in the month of April when, as you know, we were all going through a huge unprecedented crisis with the view that lots of people in this crisis, a lot of our stakeholders, students, alumni, faculty, etc., would take some sort of a good feeling from the fact that, you know, if they are able to listen to some nice conversations with inspirational leaders and hear them and hear about their life story, that was something that we felt would be very, very good for them. And so this is why we started this in the month of April. This has been really successful. Lots and lots of people have actually viewed our concerts, our conversations. Last count, I think 18 million people have viewed these. And we have had a Nobel laureate, we have had sports people, eminent business personalities, and what have you. It's been a really, really engaging and exciting time. And so today's, I'm going to start off very quickly by introducing our guest, Suresh Narayanan. We are very happy that he was able to make time for us. He's the CEO and Managing Director of Nestle India. And very briefly about Suresh, he is a veteran of the FMCG industry with over 3 decades of experience in various organizations in Unilever, with Colgate-Palmolive and Nestle. He has led Nestle's operations in many geographies, the Philippines, Egypt, Singapore. And then he came to Nestle India at a very, very specific time, at the time of the Maggi crisis. And he's been there since. And he's known for a very methodical and very, very humanistic approach and calm, and he's been seen as a crisis manager, or so we believe, so we hear. So today we are very privileged to have him with us, and I will have a conversation with him and talk to him a little bit about the life and various things as we move forward in this conversation.
Thank you, Sundar. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you, Suresh. Thank you so much for joining us. As I mentioned, I just introduced you. And the way we will do this is that I will ask you a few questions, and then we will see how it goes. We have asked the audience for lots of questions, and they will come in. And then after a few minutes, we will start with some audience questions. So firstly, we will talk a little bit about, I think, your early years in education. And one thing that struck us is that as your father was in a transferable job, you were in a boarding school for, I think, a fair part of your life, right? In Rishi Valley, I believe. So always was interesting to us, you know, how did that shape your career, or what do you think you learned there, or what are the various learnings or thoughts that you had as a result of that?
Thank you, Sundar, and thank you for asking me that question as well. I think I got into Rishi Valley more by accident than by design. You know, my father was in the Border Roads organization, so he was building roads all across the borders of the country, and we were posted in Dimapur, in Nagaland, and he discovered that you know, I was standing first in class rather too often. So he felt that I think I was kind of repeating whatever I had done, and which was probably true, because we had moved from Dehradun to Dimapur, and this was 1970 I'm talking about. And so he talked to a neighbor, and a neighbor of ours, and who was also a colleague of his, has had his son studying at Rishi Valley. And he suggested to my father that why don't you put your son into Rishi Valley. It was quite expensive for him. I think almost a third of his salary went to educate me there. But my parents, I think, really, I'm eternally grateful to them. They said that we will invest in your education, and they sent me, you know, there were various options, Doon School and Mayo and various places. But then I think my mother chose Rishi Valley. One, because it served South Indian food, and being a South Indian, she said, you know, it's easy on the food. And secondly, my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, were close by in Bangalore, and therefore she felt that would be a good choice for me to go to. And I must say, Sundar, it is, I unabashedly say this, that it is the finest school in the world. I mean, Rishi Valley is really, really outstanding. Founded by Jiddu Krishnamurti, the famous philosopher, in 1926. 375 acres of a valley, all to 300 odd children, from fourth grade till 11th grade in my time, and now of course it is till 12th grade. And I think it really shaped me enormously. And we have our own batchmates who link up on WhatsApp almost 20 times a day. And I think all of us really recount the Rishi Valley days as the foundation days for us. I mean, the entire value system, humanism. I think the quality of reflection, humility, the fact that we never looked at people and at students as kind of outputs of a class system. We had children of some of the most famous and the richest people in India, and we also had students who were on scholarship. We all wore the same white kurta pajama. We had the same kind of no uniforms in those days. We ate in the same dining hall. We stayed in the same dormitories. We all listened to Krishna ji, as J. Krishnamurti was called. And I feel sad that when he spoke to us, I wasn't wise enough and mature enough to understand him. And I think that's my deep sadness. But today, when I read some of his works, or I recount my days back at Rishi Valley, a lot of that comes back to me. And I think I'm eternally grateful. I think Rishi Valley, my teachers, the people who formed me there, their informal system of education. We had banyan tree under which we had cultural programs. We had education under trees, on benches. We had to be in the library. We had to discover for ourselves a lot of things. And I think they were revolutionary at that time. And at the time when I went to school, Rishi Valley wasn't as famous as it is today. A lot of other schools have modeled themselves on what Rishi Valley has stood for. But I must say that I owe an eternal debt to that school, and so do a lot of my classmates. And I think we count those. I spent about 5 years in that school, and I count those 5 years as probably the best that I've had in my life so far.
Thank you, Suresh. So let me fast forward on to another very interesting thing I noticed when we were reading up on you, that you were in Delhi School of Economics and ostensibly preparing for the IAS when suddenly you decided to join Hindustan Lever those days, now it was Unilever, and a place which was pretty much the stronghold in a sense of all MBAs and stuff. So what was a economics boy doing in, how did he get into this career?
Very good question, Sundar. I was very determined to be a civil servant. I come from a bureaucratic government background. My father was a government servant. My grandfather was a government servant on the paternal side. On the maternal side, he worked for Hindustan Aeronautics. So I've had the service background in my life, and I wanted to be an IAS officer, and therefore I did my honors in economics. I did my masters from the Delhi school. Ironically, Sundar, I never applied for any of the IIMs. I never even thought of it, and I wanted to pursue the career of a civil servant. And then, as sometimes happens, Sundar, and this is what you look back, chance, I don't know, fortune, or I don't know, fate, whatever it is. That particular year, 1981, is when Hindustan Lever, as it was then called, came on to the Delhi School of Economics. And I think they came as an experiment, and I don't think they've been back longer since. And probably that's because of the selection that they made. They're probably not the happiest with it. But anyway, be that as it may, they came. And then at that time, one of my relatives who was in the IAS and did mention that Hindustan Lever was very good for interviews, and their interview system was pretty rigorous. And my father also concurred with it. He said, "No, you apply, go apply for it, and at least go for the interview and see how it is. It's a good practice for the IAS interviews that might come on subsequently." So I went for it, and I took my chance. And lo and behold, in the preliminary round in Delhi, I got selected. And then I tried to throw a curved ball because my exams were around the corner, my final exams for the masters in economics. So I threw a curved ball. I said, look, if you can give me an air ticket, I'll be happy to come. And again, I don't know, fate, what happened. They accepted that they would give me an air ticket. In those days, 1981, I'm talking about. So 39 years ago, air tickets were pretty expensive. They gave me that, but I was delighted. I said, look, even if I don't make it, I had a very fond aunt of mine in Mumbai, whom I had not seen for a while. I said, good, I'll at least meet my aunt and uncle and my cousins. And why not I go and visit Mumbai? So I went to Mumbai. I went for the interview, the final interview, and surrounded by all MBA students from IIM Calcutta, from IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Bangalore. And I was only a non-MBA in that batch. They started with asking for a case study. I didn't know what a case study was. I remember I asked a girl sitting next to me from IIM Calcutta. I said, look, what is a case study? She said, you don't know? I said, look, I don't know. I know theorems, I know hypotheses, but I don't know what a case study is. But anyway, I must have bumbled through that case study. It was something on surf detergent at that point in time. And then I got called for the final interview with a few members of the board of directors. And lo and behold, I got selected. And so it was a management trainee at Hindustan Lever. Those days, it was the premier sales and marketing job. I never realized that it was anything. I said, oh my God, now my goal goes for a 6 because I wanted to be an IAS officer, not a corporate executive. So I went back to Delhi and I spoke to this uncle, this relative of mine, saying, look, I've got this. He said, look, oh, it's a great company, join it because my classmate is doing very well in Hindustan Lever. He's got even an air-conditioned car. So air-conditioned car in those days was a big thing. And he said, look, Suresh, you might apply for the IAS, but there are hardly 100 fellows who get into the IAS. You might land up with a service that you don't like. And then what's going to happen to you? I said, oh, yeah, that's a possibility because, it's a chance. So that's how I landed on Hindustan Lever, and I chose a career there. And the only message I would like to leave, Sundar, is my learning is when you are really bindas about something, when you really don't care very much for the outcome of an effort that you put in, ironically, you put in your very best. And that's what probably appealed to the selectors that day because I wasn't the best in that situation by far in terms of management education, but maybe something I said or did or demonstrated that made this great company select someone who was just a master's degree in economics, who could have been anywhere between a head clerk to whatever he has become. Happen, and I think I'm grateful for that.
Thank you, Suresh. Sounds very interesting story. So, I mean, the crossroads of life, in a sense, anything can happen. But coming to the Unilever, I mean, I believe you spent many years there, and obviously Unilever was a place where lots of very interesting marketing and sales things were built in a sense, right? So, give us some sense of some interesting things that happened to you during those times before you come to Nestle.
Well, I think it's even though I helm also a very fine company, Nestle, I must always be in gratitude for the fact that professionally, the way Hindustan Lever then honed me was the way that my career has taken shape. So I mean I'm grateful for that. I think 2 or 3 things about Hindustan Lever as I knew it. Number one, the very strong middle class values. Everybody. My chairman then was Dr. Ashok Ganguly. A very middle class man, a very thorough professional, outstanding manager, and truly a great human being. Down, everybody was all from middle class backgrounds. So we had a very strong middle class culture, ethics, honesty, hard work. Integrity. These were important. So I think I came from a school background and a college background that valued honesty, integrity, hard work, and outcomes. And I got into an organization that also valued it. Number 2, that there was I think it has stopped some years after I joined the company, but we used to have a 2-month stint in a village actually we had to spend time in a village doing rural projects and staying with a village with a village host, living in the village, bathing in the village, and participating in village activities in Etah district in Uttar Pradesh. That was my first exposure to rural India. And boy, that has still remained with me. I mean, 39, 40 years, 38 years afterwards, I still recall my stint in village Bajitpur. I still remember the name of the village, Bajitpur, in the Ganjundwara block, right, in Etah district. I remember it because I think it has a lasting impression on what rural India is and what people who are not like you, not as fortunate as you, and the power of gratitude. I think it taught me a lot about humility and the fact that this country has enormous diversity and has got enormous strength as well in some of the areas that we don't even see. So I think that was a great experience that I had, and plus I think my role as a salesman when I started, and I was petrified because I said, look, I was a fairly good student at the Delhi School of Economics. So I said, if my professors ever saw me selling those days Dalda Vanaspati, they will say, did we educate you in monetary economics and agricultural economics at the finest school of economics this side of the Suez to go and sell Vanaspati, right? But then I did it. I did it reasonably well. I polished the tins very well. I cleaned the tins. I put up the buntings. I did all the jobs of a salesman because the company told me, if you have to be a sales manager, you better know what a salesman does. So I think the value in work that is not white collar, is a job that is simpler, that is humbler. How do you do it, and how do you learn from it? So I think these were good foundations. Plus the fact that I was not an MBA made me always work harder because I had the best and brightest. I mean, the guys in my batch were all toppers from any of the IIMs, right? And therefore they were the best and brightest. IIT IIM combination, a bit like yours, Sundar. So that kind of combinations were the order of the day. So an economist somewhere in the middle was a bit passé. But I think I learned to overcome my inadequacies in terms of an academic credential. I worked harder, and I think that motivated me to try and do better. And I'm truly grateful. I'm blessed with the fact that that I had the dignity, I had the respect of my colleagues, of my friends, and a lot of people helped me. So I have stood tall because I have stood on the shoulder of giants, and that organization, Colgate, Nestle, I've had giants that have stood on their shoulders, and that's what has made me what it is.
Yeah, thank you. That's very, very nice thought. Standing on shoulders of giants. Moving forward, let's come to Nestle. So I believe you were in Nestle, you've been Nestle for many years, and you started off in India, but then you moved to various places, Egypt, Philippines, various places. So, we'll come to your specialization as the crisis leader, so to speak. But before that, tell us a little bit about your experiences in all these places, and what has that left you with?
Look, I think in Nestle, I've now spent 21 years, glorious 21 years. I just love the company. I love there is. The only way you can love an organization is if you love the culture, if you love the purpose, and if you love the values. And I think for me, Nestle has been very rich in all of these values of ethics, honesty, hard work, humility, perseverance, and a lot of the middle class traits that I was born with, and that company like Hindustan Lever had stoked in me, lasted. So therefore, I think Nestle has truly kind of forged and put my career as a senior professional, and given me the benefits. I started first in Indochina, in Thailand, looking after Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Vietnam, and then moved to Singapore, and then moved for 5 years in the Arab Spring in Egypt, looking after Egypt, Libya, and Sudan, North Africa, briefly in the Philippines, and then came back. I think for me, different cultures have actually been a matter of great curiosity. I've always been curious to know about how people live, what kind of lives do they lead, what matters to them, and I think this beautiful exposure that I've had in such rich cultures has taught me that every human beings may be different in terms of the way we look and the way we dress, but at the core we are still the same. We still seek respect. We still seek dignity. We still seek recognition. We still want to do an honest day's work. We still want to contribute. And I think in the cultural nuances that different cultures have offered me, I have learned a lot. And I think since I'm interested, and I'm also blessed to have a spouse, my wife Rajita, who's also completely adjusted and thoroughly loved living in very different places, and my daughter as well, Avanti, who's also enjoyed these exposures. I think I've been very lucky because the whole family has looked forward to every move. And I think I've moved almost a dozen times now since we got married. So number of homes we have changed, and yet every time there is a new seeking, there is a new enthusiasm, and there is a new passion to seek out cultures beyond and to learn from it.
So if I were to just ask you, there are a lot of youngs of our alumni from our universities, etc. And I'm sure when they go forward in life, they're going to go to various places, encounter, new challenges like this. So can you give us some thoughts on what is the best way to approach? And you're the veteran, there's 12 different places. So what would be a good way to approach, let's say, going to new places from a young person's perspective? If you could just give us some thoughts there.
Good question, Sundar. I think the first thing for me is learn acceptance. Learn to accept. When you go into a new culture, you are the guest of that culture. The culture is not your guest. So have the humility and have the understanding to accept that culture. So when I first went to the Thai culture, people had told me, Thais are they could have difficulties. They're very sensitive people, and they will not tell you things on your face. This, that, and the other. But I said, no, I don't believe this. This can't be true. Accept the reality of who the Thai is and respect the Thai for their culture, for their values, and for their demeanor. And I was especially touched. I said, every morning I used to see a group of monks walking outside, seeking alms. I said, that is the ultimate humility that a human being can achieve. You go out every day seeking alms. I said that culture must be having enormous strength to be able to project this kind of a sight that I could see. So first, learn to accept. Number two, never have the us versus them attitude. Sometimes Indians suffer from what I call this cultural arrogance. We think that everybody should speak Hindi, everyone should know who our famous stars are, everyone must know all about our culture, and I couldn't really care a damn whether I need to know more about that culture or not. So I think it's extremely important that you don't have this us versus them. Number three is try and seek out local friends. Try and interface with them outside of work to understand what moves them, what keeps them going. And number four is try and participate in cultural activities, whether it is tourism or whether it is understanding their food, understanding their language. I think all this helps. But above all, if you subserve your ego and you subserve your judgment making, you are far better off in a new culture. And I think many of us, we suffer because we make this us versus them, and then we start passing judgments that this is different and this is not right and that's not right. I think that's pretty sad.
Thank you, Suresh. That's very valuable for any of our viewers. Further, so now I'm going to ask you about, so again, and this I have to tell you that Nestle is such a large and lovely brand, but one normally doesn't hear of its leaders very much because for some reason all the leaders keep in the background. They put the brand ahead of them. But as far as you are concerned, because you sort of parachuted into India during the time of what I call the Maggi crisis, so I think your name was on everybody's lips at that time, and certainly is. So tell us a little bit about that time. It was, I'm sure, a very difficult time, and I think the company has come through with flying colors. Tell us a little bit about the time and some thoughts and learnings as how does one deal with crisis. This was a mega one, so I'm sure there are lots of things we could take out from this.
Look, good question, Sundar. I mean, firstly, it came as a bolt from the blue because I know I had spent 5 years in Egypt in the Arab Spring, and that was a really tumultuous time. But I think it was the most enjoyable time. The company grew very well. We had 25% growth for almost 5 years in a row. We invested more in 5 years than we invested in the previous 15 years. The company itself got lauded at various business schools and universities as being a recruiter of choice, as a destination of choice. And I think I was extremely happy with a young, vibrant crowd that I had in my office. But somehow the company felt that, look, you have done this enough. Go to Philippines. Philippines is a very large operation for Nestle in Southeast Asia. So it was like kind of a reward for me that go there and rest a while. And it's a lovely country, great people. I loved the office, loved my colleagues. And then suddenly I got this fateful call from my boss and from the global CEO saying that we want you in India to take care of this Maggi issue that has come up. The first thing that you feel is, and I must be honest with you, I said, why me? I said, this company has 300,000 employees. And bloody hell, this is Suresh Narayanan is the only fellow who seems to be the guy who seems to be a kind of face for the firemen, right? So why should that be the case? And then very quickly, I think my wife and I discussed, and then we said that, look, the fact of the matter is that if the company is sending you to an assignment like this, it means that they trust you and they think that you are capable of it, because you don't send your worst person to go and handle a mega crisis. So that is validation number one, that the company honestly trusts you a lot to make that happen. And secondly, by that stage, Sundar, I was in my mid-50s, and honestly, I think it's important that a stage comes in your life when it doesn't matter what happens to you, but it matters what happens to others. And I think for me, Nestle India has been a very dear organization. My career in this company was built again at Nestle India. So I have had very, very fond memories. I have enormous equity in this organization, respect, trust. And I said, look, I cannot but accept this assignment. And when you are not really concerned what happens to you, then you tend to do the right things and you take the right actions. You are calmer. You are more collected in the way in which you gather your thoughts and the way in which you act. If I was 30 something or maybe early 40s, I might have thought differently. I said, my God, if this blows up on my face, my career is finished. And not only that, I will be the lousy guy, not just in Nestle, but I'll be lousy guy in the Indian firmament of corporates. And can you imagine what's going to happen to you? So I remember I had a chat with my dad once. I told him, this is what the company is saying. And my father is old school, and he said, look, duty first. Company is telling you better come and do it. And he says, what's the worst that can happen? If you fail, the company can say, look, retire. Take your early retirement and go and read the Hindu newspaper and drink a cup of coffee. What's the worst that can happen to you? Nobody can take your life for having tried your best. And I think I took this attitude of saying that let me do the best that I can. Let me do it with the purpose and values that I've been brought up with. Let me do it with the help and support of my people, and they have been always at the center of what I have been. And even my maternal grandmother, my Pati as I call her, my Nani as I call her, who is my kind of the biggest inspiration in my life. And she told me, take care of your people, and things will happen. I took that to heart, and God has been kind. I think my people have been enormously supportive. My partners, the distributors, everyone who's been involved has done so much for the organization. I'm the front face, Sundar, but the credit is theirs. They are the ones who made it happen.
Great. I guess also goes to show the choice, your leaders, your boss and the CEO of the company to have chosen you for this. So I mean they also have some what I call it's important to choose the right person for the right job also. I think a lot of credit needs to go to them as well, right? Suresh, I'm going to move to audience questions now. I will come back to, I know there are some more questions I have from mine, but I think we should get our very excited audience to ask. So I have a question from Sambit Bose here, who says, my friend works in Nestle India in the supply chain. It's a very demanding job, but I find him highly motivated and dedicated. How do you manage to maintain? How does the company manage to maintain such a high level of engagement when people are struggling at this time and finding it difficult to manage motivation? So, what is Nestle's secret sauce for keeping for such high levels of motivation in employees?
I think it's I thank you. I thank the young man who works in our supply chain, who works extremely hard. The secret sauce of any company, Sundar, has to be its soul. The soul of an organization is its culture. And I have said this before. I said if companies were to invest more in culture than even in capex, I think we'll have far better run, far more inspired companies. And I think it's important that the task of a leader is really to ensure that he sets the pace for the purpose and values in the organization. What is it that I do on an active basis? I don't sell, I don't market, I don't manufacture, I don't do anything on my own. I am like an orchestra conductor. An orchestra conductor knows every strain of the music, and yet he doesn't make a sound. That is the beauty of an orchestra conductor. So for an orchestra conductor and a leader, you have to have the capability to unleash the best in your people. And I think allow them to be what they are, allow their best to come out in them, and the rest happens. I think the rest happens. I think sometimes we micromanage, sometimes we don't trust our people, sometimes we don't empower our people, sometimes we don't engage them, and then we keep saying that, look, why is it that my organization is not doing great? It will not do great because the soul of the organization is not speaking its voice, and the soul is your culture. And I think that's very, very important.
Thank you, Suresh. I'm going to do one more question. Yogesh Mathur. Very interesting. Suresh would be keen to know what you consider to be core competencies for success as a manager in your early days, in your 30 plus year history, let's say the first 10, 15 years, versus what they are for today's managers. So is there a difference in the core competencies that as an early manager and as today's young managers? Your thoughts on those?
Look, let me, I think there are the usual ones in terms of competence, skill building, in terms of leadership, etc. But, one of the things that Rishi Valley left in me, and my fond Hindi teacher Mishraji left in me, was a love for the Kabir Dohas. And I think I just want to use two of the Dohas to illustrate what I mean by developing strengths. The first one, he said, Kabir's Dohas, I wish people read more of it. 600 years on, it makes so much of sense, and especially in the pandemic, I think we should. I would recommend that people read it. One of them was Bura jo dekhan main chala, bura na miliya koi, jo dil khoja apna, mujhsa bura na koi. So you went out to look in the world for bad people, and you came back with the realization that mujhsa bura na koi, that nobody was worse than you. I think it is this constant reflection on who you are, what you stand for, and what guidance that you can provide. That is very important. Number two is on ego, and I think the more you subsume your ego, the better you are as a leader. And again, Kabir said this beautifully. He said, "Jab main tha, tab hari nahi, ab hari hai main nahi. Sab andhyara mit gaya, jab deepak dekhe mahi." So when I was there, the ego was there was no God. Today, God is there. and I'm able to see the light that I've got. So I think you have to subsume your ego very much in order to be a good leader. The third one is, I think, applicable to the pandemic as it is to organizations. That you have to allow for the pace of things to grow in the organization, and you have to allow the laws of nature and the laws of organization to hold true. And that again, Kabir said it beautifully. He said, "Dheere dheere se mana, dheere sab kuch hoy, mali siiche so ghada, rutu aaye phal hoy." So dheere dheere, everything in nature takes time, and dheere se hi phal aata hai. You can take 100 ghadas of pani and pour it on that seed, but only when the spring comes, the fruit will come. So I think I think sometimes this impatience to try and achieve things in a short term and compromise on the the purpose and values that you have and destroy the organization. Most of the failures you notice, Sundar, have been leadership failures. Not bad strategies, not completely bizarre plans. It's lousy, uncaring, uncompassionate, and also very, very short-sighted leadership. And I think that's, unfortunately, that is the price that we have to pay when we also look at the pandemic.
Thank you, Suresh. Lovely, really nice to hear those dohas. But coming to the pandemic, now that the one, so tell us a little bit about you, about Nestle, about what are you doing at this time? I know it's a difficult time for all of us, and every organization does differently. But any general thoughts that you have, and how you people are coping with this, and with both the business and personal challenges ahead?
Look, I think it's a very good question, and I've said this before, but I think it captures my own personal philosophy very well. And I've said this. I said in a crisis, you don't run a company, you serve a family. And I think it is true in a crisis. This is not a command and control situation. Things are not known, things are not defined, things are not determinate. Everything is up in the air. Everything is uncertain. There is fear. People are fearful of their lives, for their loved ones, for their families, for everyone around them. So this is the time when a leader takes on the role of a person who serves. So my first role is to my people. And the first thought that comes to me is protect my people at all costs. Protect them from work to home, protect them in order to ensure that no harm comes their way. Take whatever precautions you can in terms of social distancing, hygiene, whatever you got. That's number one. As part of people, I also look at the partnerships of the company. We have 100,000 farmers. We have ensured that the 100,000 milk farmers in the Punjab who have been with us for the last 60 years, we started with them with 500 liters of milk. Today, we collect more than 300 million liters per year. We have ensured that every drop of milk that is collected is processed by the company. You have to stand by the trust. You have to stand by at this time of crisis. And thank God, I have a revenue stream. So I'm able to do the things because I have a revenue stream. I still have brands that are loved by consumers, and I love consumers. So therefore, that is the second part of it. In partnerships, we have tried to reach out to our front end. We've got about 10 to 12,000 distributor salespeople. These are people who get paid 10 to 15,000 rupees. They all have families, they all have children, they all have responsibilities. So one thing, and we were one of the first companies to do it, and I'm glad we did it. We provided a COVID insurance for the first period of 3 months. Now we extended that for another 3 months, so that God forbid if something happens to them, they have some financial security that their family can look upon. So in this manner, I think for all these small suppliers, one of the concerns that I have personally got, and which I keep following up with my head of supply chain, with my head of procurement, is I don't want even a single MSME to go under. I said it is our job in the ecosystem to be like the banyan tree that I had in Rishi Valley, like the same banyan tree, that we protect everyone as best as we can. And I think in this, one of the things that I've told my own people, we will look at cutting whatever costs we need to cut in order to keep afloat. But I promise you, I will not be after your jobs. Your jobs is a sign of respect more than just your means of earning. And I have no business trampling it. So as long as God can protect me, if I'm able to protect your jobs, I think that will be a great contribution that I can make. So on multiple fronts, we are trying to address to ensure that our brands, our factories operate. I'm very proud. All 8 of my factories are operating. My workers are coming. They are producing. We take it as a national cause because many of our brands are required by consumers. We do our very best in order to ensure that the consumer is served as best as we can. So, numerous tasks on numerous fronts. I think this is a calling that an organization needs to rise to. And you know what, Sundar, at this time, emails and memos and processes don't work. This is a time when culture speaks. This is the time when values speak. I can't explain to that supply chain manager whom the person asked a question on that do this, do that. But culture will speak and he will do it on his own. I think that is the beauty that in the end of it all, people achieve results and they say, we did it ourselves. And that is the satisfaction that a leader has.
Thank you, Suresh. I'm now going to ask you what I'm sort of going to coalesce 2 questions in one. Both are about products and about what Nestle will do. So just to give you a sense, one says that considering that Nestle products caters to lifestyle and discretionary spends of consumers, now that discretionary income is lesser, what are your thoughts or plans? And the second one talks about you focus a lot on the fortune at the bottom of the pyramid. But in the actually that's what in past interviews Jay Parikh asks this, and but rural what I call people have been hit in this pandemic. So are there some things that you are doing to address this? Specific what I call product related issues that you may be facing in the next few months?
It's a very good question from Jay Parikh. I think a few trends that we are seeing happening now in this pandemic. Number one is that trust and credibility of brands matter. I think that is number one. People don't want to experiment with too many brands. They want to stick to the icons of the past or those brands that they're familiar with. Number one. Number two, of course, there is an obvious shift from out of home to in-home experiences and consumption of brands. And there also Nestle stands to gain because some of our brands, be it popular Maggi noodles or Milo or Everyday or UHT, A plus milk or yogurts, whatever, it all has a strong in-home presence. The third element which is happening is people are seeking better nutrition and better for you products, whether it is immunity related or which is just better nutrition. And I think we have got a flurry of products in the nutrition space that also we are addressing. So at this time, we are looking at really recalibrating our innovation pipeline to see which are the most relevant categories and products that we can come out with in order to address the needs of the consumer. And I think there are numerous opportunities that are there. We also have, for example, e-formats and e-platforms. We have a platform called Ask Nestle, which is one of India's few credible nutrition sites where you can get information on nutrition, on recipes, on growth of children, growth charts, picky children, menus, etc., etc. And I think there we have tried to engage a lot of consumers with different recipes that they can use, healthy recipes that they can use for a whole variety of dishes. Some involving Nestle brands, some others not involving any of our brands. And I think this is also, the acceleration is, Sundar, that we are able to get results in terms of digital engagement, 5x to 10x times of what we have ever got in the past. And that's, I think, generally, if you look at it, even in terms of e-commerce platforms, I was reading somewhere that the US has achieved in 8 weeks enhanced penetration of e-commerce, what it took 8 years to achieve. So I think the digital connect that is happening, and of course that will also be speaking through companies like HCL, I'm sure in the future, the digital engagement is going to be very high, but consumers also are going to look for brands that are trustworthy. They might downtrade because once incomes start to come down, job losses are there very sadly across a whole plethora of companies. So people might seek smaller packs. That is something that we are preparing ourselves for. We already have a good roster of products there. And rural India, I firmly believe that with a better monsoon predicted, and also with a very good summer crop harvest that has happened, rural India might actually surprise us. With a 3-4% growth, rural India will probably outpace urban, uh, which was the case a few quarters ago. Rural was always ahead of urban. Now again, it just might surprise us.
Great. Thanks, Suresh. Suresh, I know we are 45 minutes so off time. Can I disturb you for 10 to 15 minutes more? Is that okay? A couple more questions. Thank you so much. Sorry for pushing this because there were lots of questions, but I'm just going to ask you a couple more, which are very interesting ones in my head. One is, okay, Raj Swaminathan. Suresh, after such a fantastic career and iconic status in the corporate world, what is next for you personally? I mean, obviously that still continues, but what are you, I take this to say, what are you doing other than what I call all these things you do in any case? And give
Raj
us some.
Raj is extremely kind to me. I think it's enormous kindness that he says whatever I've achieved. Look, I'm just an ordinary guy. I've with a master's degree in economics, with a lot of hope, a lot of prayer, a lot of blessings that I've received from a lot of people, that I've achieved this. So I don't accord any kind of iconic status to me. If I can be remembered as a person who made people in the organization feel good about themselves and help them along, I think I'll be very happy. Uh, I don't seek anything, Sundar, from the corporate world. I'm not looking for promotion, any kind of reward, any kind of things. I think God has been very, very kind to me. I think I've been my parents' blessings and the blessings of my elders and my friends and colleagues has been enormous. I don't seek anything. What I really want to do is, and I think my interest is abiding in teaching. I would love to teach students. I like to engage with youngsters. I was so happy when Roshni invited me to come and give your the graduation talk at
Yes.
Vidya Gyan. And the reason why I came was I was so happy to come to a school where underprivileged children achieve such fantastic academic credentials. I mean, it was truly moving for me. I would really like to involve myself in teaching in whatever way I can, and in whatever way I can help young people with whatever experience I've got. It may not be the most fantastic experience, it may not be the most enriching experience, but it is my experience, and I've done 39 years of it, and I hope I can contribute something to it.
Thank you, Suresh. I mean, it's really rich experience. 39 years. You're just selling yourself short for all, just like that. But there's one question I want. It's a very nice question. I mean, Suhas Malia, sorry. Mr. Suresh, how does a large organization balance a process-driven culture with freedom for individual judgment and innovation?
It's a very good.
Yeah, please.
It's a very good question. Very good question. I think one of the inviolables in an organization is the kind of purpose, values, and decision-making frameworks that you have. I think those are important. Decision-making frameworks are coming out of a philosophy and a view that you take on risk, on control, on empowerment, on ideation and innovation, and outcomes. So I think these are fairly these evolve over time, but I believe in organizations these are fairly sacrosanct. But within it, surprisingly, more often than not, I find decisions not being taken because of process constraints, but sadly because of inertia. It is. I'm one small cog in the wheel. This is a huge organization. What difference does it make to Nestle if I don't take a decision? If if five people think it, maybe it is fine. If 500 people think it, then it is disaster. So I think that the task of leadership is to unbundle some of the processes and to really define what are the parameters that you're looking at and what kind of empowerment are you able to unleash. That is the task of leadership. So my entire role in the organization is threefold. Number one is to be the evangelist of purpose and values. That's all I do. Today I had a session to incoming batch of 22 young management trainees. and I talk to them on purpose, values, and on leading good careers. That's number one. Number two is to be the public face of the company in terms of whatever we achieve or whatever we do to get that across. And number three is to be, since I have the vantage view of the organization, to find out the underlying gaps, the underlying blockages, and the underlying systemic issues that is not helping the organization become fast, focused, and flexible the way I would like it to be, and then to try and address it with my team. So these are the only three things that I do. Everything else on businesses, decisions, execution is done by my team.
Thanks, Suresh. I'm just going to ask last two quick audience questions and then sort of wrap up, given the time. So, Aparna Vishwanathan, very inspiring turn in your life. Have you ever felt you missed being a civil servant? And now that you look back, or do you think if that road had been taken, have you thought of that, or can you just tell us what do you think would have happened? I know it's just it's a bit of
it's a very good question, Sundar. And the last couple of years I've been meeting bureaucrats at a senior level, of additional secretaries and secretaries who are all my contemporaries in the university. So they're all people who are a couple of batches junior, senior. And when I look at them, I say, look, I imagine myself. I have a kind of a mind game. And I say, can I imagine myself in their chair as a secretary for whatever, right? And how would I have done in that role? I honestly feel that I think they do enormously inspiring jobs. I mean, a job of a civil servant, a job of an IAS officer is just fantastic in terms of what he or she can achieve. And that's why we still have a lot of young people going for it. I still would say that it's an enormously rich career in terms of what you can do and the impact that you can make. I somehow feel now that after having spent such a long time in the corporate world and kind of being shielded from a lot of the mayhem that happens around the environment, politics, all kinds of nepotism and various other issues. I have been, fortunately, it's just my own good fortune. It's not that it's a general rule. I've been part of three fantastic organizations, Hindustan Lever, Colgate, and Nestle, where fairness, where competency, where hard work, where results, where people skills, and where ethics have mattered. It has fitted into my makeup, and I have been successful. So I have no regrets about the corporate career that I came. I think God willed it that particular way. But equally, I think the job done by civil servants is truly outstanding, and is something that is praiseworthy for many of them.
Thank you. Quick question from Gaurav Tiwari. Hello from Varanasi. What are your top 5 must-read books, or 5 books that you would like to, or 5, 3, whatever you'd like to talk about?
Look, I think some of them are. I don't read much of fiction, so therefore, unfortunately, I don't have too many of the fiction books that I can talk about. I think one of the books that I found very interesting was "Who Moved My Cheese." That's a great book that I've read. I've read books by John Cotter on leadership. I think Cotter is extremely evocative, also on leadership and leadership styles. I've read this great book by Rob Goffey called "Why Should Anyone Be Led by You?" And I think it's a masterpiece, which is there from the London Business School. Why should anyone be led by you? I've also read another book recently. It's called Ikigai, which is on seeking purpose and seeking meaning in life. And I think these have been good. And also I've read the latest book by Professor Banerjee and Duflo, the one on I forget the title now, on economics, which I thought was a very powerful book. So these are some of the books that have interested me, that I've read and that I've liked.
Thank you. Suresh, I'm just going to leave the last thing here, which is all our students, alumni, and faculty wanted your thoughts on, on how, what message you could give them. What should they? How should they approach life from your perspective?
Look, I think we are all sitting in the midst of a pandemic, and I think it's important to realize, and I think we had a chat on this, Sundar. I don't know how you look at this. What signals you see in this? I see a much larger meaning. I mean, the fact of the matter is that 500,000 people are dead, and more than 7 million people have been infected, and the total weight of the virus that is infected is just about 2 grams. So 2 grams of virus has brought mankind down on its knees. So your arrogance, your hubris, your self-confidence, your aggrandizement, your greed, your deceit, your inequality, your racism, your bigotry has all collapsed in one fell sweep. So I think this is a time for human beings to realize that there is a better, there is a gentler, there is a more fair, and there is a more honest way to conduct your lives. Recalibrate. You don't have to publish or publicize what your thoughts have been on your life before, but recalibrate yourself. And really, this is also a call to all the young people that look at what this means for your lives. And don't follow the generations that unfortunately have left you with fewer examples, with fewer icons than you need to lead a great life. But recalibrate your life in the context of what you learn in this pandemic. And let's be a kinder, let's be a gentler, let's be a nobler, let's be a more compassionate world. And I think that is very, very important. And as the Dalai Lama said beautifully, he said, compassion is the new radicalism. I think let's understand the meaning of this great man's words. Compassion is the new radicalism. And I think we need to imbibe it. We need to follow it. Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh. Thank you so much. That was lovely. Absolutely. Compassion is the new radicalism. Absolutely. So that sort of brings me to the end. And it's been my privilege, Suresh, absolutely, to talk to you the last 1 hour. I think, CEOs have this. People think of CEOs as people who are, adrenaline fueled, always nervous, tense, stressed, jumping at what I call, for results, this, that, I think if somebody has broken the mold in the minds of people, if it's you, I mean, you come across as such a, what I call, human, grounded sort of person. And so I hope many of our young viewers will see, when they think of CEOs and read all those books and see Greed is Good by Gordon Gekko, whatever, they also have an image of some person like you in their minds who's done so much, but is so self-effacing about it. And thank you so much. It's been completely my privilege to talk to you for the last 1 hour.
Thank you, Sundar. I think I just like to leave you with the fact is that I have been eating tair sadam, which is curd rice, all my life, and now that keeps you cool. And I think I just want to leave with this thought that I believe that when Alexander the Great died, I don't know whether this is true or whether it is a story, that he had both his palms open as he was carried to his grave. And the message he wanted to send was, I come with nothing, I go with nothing. And I think that's true for all our lives. So all this hubris and all this arrogance and all this pomposity in the middle is absolutely meaningless. So good luck to everyone and who's been listening in. I hope it has been useful for them, and may God bless them, and may they all be safe and may they all be secure in this pandemic. And thank you, Sundar, for this wonderful opportunity. And it is great having a chat with you. God bless you, and keep safe and happy as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. Please be safe and happy.